Hello, everybody doing A-level physics exams tomorrow. Basically, I guess the thing I really want to sort of get across is stop revising. You know enough already, and now it's time to make sure that you get to bed, you get rested, so tomorrow you can attack the really hard questions feeling fresh and refreshed. And so basically, a lot of you know that I've been doing masterclasses recently. I've just run one this evening where I did an AQA Paper 1 masterclass. I've got future things coming up for Paper 2 masterclasses, and you can find those on my website. So basically, after you've done Paper 1 tomorrow, you've got that out of the way, what you can do is head over to A-Level Physics Online. You can find the masterclasses here. So I've got like a cool funky new animation here. And basically, after you've done your Paper 1 exam, I'm doing some things for Paper 2, specific to OCR, AQA and Edexcel. So if you want to prepare for Paper 2, you can book those tomorrow after you've kind of got Paper 1 out of the way. But I would just say for everybody out there, all you need to do is just read the question. If you find it difficult, move on and come back to it later. So don't spend 3 minutes, 4 minutes doing a 1-mark multiple choice question. Instead, leave it if it's difficult, come back to it later in the exam. And make sure as well, if you're doing these longer answer questions, that you do write in bullet points. So just because that 6-marker or the 3-mark explain question looks like you've just got to write stuff down, don't forget to include bullet points and maybe diagrams or equations to support your answer. But yeah, so basically, somebody's saying, Slay, saying that you're cooked. You're not. You're going to be absolutely fine. You've all spent years and years doing A-level physics. You've improved massively from when you were little GCSE students, and I'm sure that all of you are going to be fine tomorrow. If there's a 1-marker that you need to guess, is there a most common answer, says Jack? Yeah, the answer is probably going to be B. There we go. Yeah, if you're not sure, the answer is probably B. Somebody's saying, when you say the pulse in optical fibre, what do you mean by that? Right. What topics should you focus on for last minute revision? Basically, you've done your revision, you know it by now, and I think if you're going to spend a little bit of time, maybe tomorrow morning, just checking over your notes, just refresh your definitions. Can you remember what EMF or potential differences if you're doing electricity? Can you remember some of the derivations for some of the common things? And that really depends on which exam board you're doing. Right, should you blurt? I don't reckon so. I think just doing past paper questions is better. Either doing past paper questions or looking at flashcards. That would be my preferred method. Okay. It's not a thing. Basically, who knows what the answer is going to be? It's going to be completely random. Basically, 25% of the time it's going to be B, so you may as well go for that. Right, Jed, thank you so much saying that Physics Online is the best channel out there. What should you do now, sir? Says Jay. Basically, stop watching me and just go to bed. That's it. The time is like 10 past 9. You could have plenty of time to just chill out a bit, go to bed, and that means in the morning you've got everything sorted. Actually, the one thing I would be doing now is checking that you have a protractor and that you've got a black pen and you've got a pencil and you've got a ruler. So I think that the things that you should be doing is just making sure that you've got a pencil, a rubber and a protractor. Okay, right. Okay, right. Jay's just bought one of these for the physics exam. Is a protractor needed for OCR? Yes, it is. You need a protractor in case you have to draw a scale diagram, especially if you maybe need to measure the angle that a vector is at, or maybe you need to draw a good diagram looking at refraction. So yeah, I reckon this. Is it worth sitting through a past paper right now? No, basically, there's no point doing a past paper now. I don't think the amount that you'd learn from doing that would be compensated by how much more tired you'd be tomorrow. And the thing is, there will be some difficult questions tomorrow, and you need to be thinking sharply about that. And although a past paper is good, if you've left it until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock the night before, the amount you're going to learn from that past paper versus the amount that you might then suffer by not thinking clearly about all the other stuff that you currently do know. So yeah, okay. What do I recommend doing in the morning before the exam? basically just try and do your normal morning routine. Now that could be lying in bed as long as possible and then not having any breakfast and going straight to the exam, or it could be making your bed neatly, having I'd say don't do anything different. So don't have a massively different breakfast. Don't do anything different on the way to school. Just treat it like any other exam. You've been to school thousands of times. I guess there's like 200 school days a year. I think it's 195 days of school a year. You've been doing this for 13 years. So basically, you've gone to school 2,500 times. Don't make tomorrow morning anything different. Just treat it like a normal morning. Get to school, do the exam. You'll be absolutely fine. Okay, right. If you're always late for school, then don't be late. Right. Don't be worried. Yeah. What is a scale diagram? Yeah, so there could be the two main examples of scale diagrams is maybe if you've got maybe one force and then you've got another force that isn't at 90 degrees. Okay, so one example could be you've got this force and you've got this force. What would be the other force needed in order for this system to be in equilibrium? And then basically what you would do is you could just draw in the other force, which in this case would be in this direction. And of course you could then maybe measure the angle of that force to something. So you can say the angle that it's acting at, which in this case might be 167 degrees from north. And also you might look at the distance here, which might then be related to maybe some kind of vector quantity. So it could be a velocity, it could be a momentum, or it could be a force. Okay, the other type is maybe if you've got a surface and you've got a ray of light impacting that surface. Is it going to maybe totally internally reflect? Is it going to refract out of this material? Well, you'll know that because what you can do is use your ruler. Very simply, we're just going to match that up. We might draw the normal line that goes in here. And of course, if you know the normal line and you know this, you can work out the angle of incidence that you can measure, and then you can work out what happens. So two examples tends to be scale drawing. That could be velocity, momentum, or force, or you've got some ray of light that again you've drawn with a ruler and a pencil to make sure that you don't make any mistakes, and then you get that. Okay, how can you understand electricity better? Yeah, right. Have I seen the MME predicted papers? I haven't seen those ones. I would say all predicted papers are just question papers or papers with exam style questions in. I don't feel that the predicted papers are a true prediction of what's going to come up. The best way to prepare for the exam tomorrow is to prepare for everything, realising that anything could be asked about. And I've done so many past papers. In fact, over the last year, for anybody who's not seen this already, if you go to my A-level website and you go to the past papers section, so just go to more, go to past papers, you can find all of the past papers I've done. So over the last year, I've done lots of work solutions. If I look at paper 1, for example, I've got work solutions and video solutions for AQA, for Edexcel and OCR from 2022 and 2023. So I've done about 1,000 individual parts of questions over the last year. And I would say that I have no idea what could be predicted. I've done more questions than most people have done. I've definitely worked through more questions than the people who've been putting together the predicted papers recently, and I've no idea what's going to come up. So just prepare for everything. Okay, right. Right, if there's any other questions that people have, and I can see that the chat is just going a bit crazy. I'm just going to see how many people are actually on tonight. So there seem to be a lot of people in the chat. And lots of people's specific questions I have answered, but the thing is, a lot of the answers can be found on my website, and it's hard to kind of get the answer you need in the chat at the moment. How many people are watching? 266 people, that's incredible. But basically, if there's anything you're not sure about, you can find the answer to this on my website, which is alevelphysicsonline.com. Head over to my website, and then when you get to the website, you can just easily find your exam board. So if you're doing AQA papers, you can find content for all of the subtopics that you might need help with. And there's lots of stuff there that you can use. And I've got that for all of the exam boards. But basically, if there's anything you're not sure about, head over to my website, and then I can basically explain it to you in like a pre-recorded video. So let's see what people are saying. Somebody says they did AQA last year. Good luck, guys. Yeah, AQA papers in 2024 were too difficult, and I don't think that the 2025 papers are going to be as difficult as 2024 or 2023. And I think it's the same for OCR. A lot of people found modelling physics from OCR in 2024 too difficult or quite difficult, and I think it's going to be much more straightforward this year. Okay, right. So sorry, there's so many questions. Let me see. Let me pick a few. Do you need required practicals for paper 1 AQA? I would say for everybody here, you need to have a good understanding of the practical activities you've carried out, because you could be assessed on the theory that's covered in the required practicals. So if you did a required practical looking at waves and maybe stationary waves on a string, then that theory could be assessed because that's part of the curriculum. So anything that you did as a required practical, you need to remember because you've already done it, and you could be asked questions about that topic. Okay, right. Could you get another tent-like question if you are an OCR student? Potentially, but I think the tent-like question was quite difficult, especially, I went through it today with some of the students in my class, and it was tricky because when you looked at the force, when you doubled the velocity, we actually made the force go up by a factor of 4. So that's a tricky question, but don't fixate on the questions that you can't do. On any paper, there will always be tricky questions, but I would say don't fixate on the ones that you can't do from the previous past papers, and realise instead that probably about 90 to 95% of the questions you could actually do. So don't dwell on the ones that you can't do, realise that you can do most of the questions, and if there's a tricky question, everybody's going to find it tricky. If I talk about the tent question, every OCR student knows what I'm talking about. Right, so here we go. How do you prepare for questions that you maybe not got so far? Don't worry about it, okay? If you maybe can't do waves questions, waves is a big topic. If you're preparing for waves questions and maybe you're not always getting 100% on the past paper questions, there's nothing really you can do about it now apart from get a good night's sleep, and just make sure that tomorrow you really read the question. Maybe use a highlighter or underline some of the key words as you're reading through the question, and spend an extra minute reading through very carefully before you start writing. And that means you're not going to be writing the wrong answer and spending your time and your effort in things which aren't going to get you marks. It's better to kind of, take a step back, have a real deep think about what the question is asking, and then actually answer it as concisely as possible. Okay. What is a lepton? A lepton is just a classification of fundamental particle like electrons and muons. Okay, how to maximise efficiency and consistency during the exam? Well, basically, you've already built up these skills doing lots and lots of past papers. So to be consistent, it's just a case of realising that you've got, either 1.5 hours, 1 hour 45, 2 hours, 2 hours 15, however long it might be for your exam board, knowing that there's probably a clock at the front of the exam that you can keep an eye on, and just realise that it's like a marathon, it's not a sprint. So just consistently work steadily through the paper and you'll get there. Okay, right. Right, how do you deal with exam anxiety? Basically, I just think that it's fine to be anxious. It's a bit like if you've done a race or you've done some big event. It's absolutely normal to be nervous, but the way that you can deal with that might be to just make sure that everything is fully prepared. So this might be just tonight, making sure you've got all of the equipment, you know exactly which exam hall the exam's going to be in, you know what time it starts, therefore you know what time you need to get there. And basically there's a point where you realise that you've done everything you possibly can. You've done as many of the past papers, you've been in lessons for the last couple of years, you've had chances to speak to your teachers, speak to your friends, maybe see some of the videos I've made, or Z Physics, or Physics with Keith, or you've done some tutoring with people. There's lots of things that you might have done over the last year, and this is all building your kind of base knowledge. And I would say that all you've got to do now is basically, you know that you've prepared everything, and it's just up to the gods of physics to kind of give you some questions, and you just need to pray to them tonight to hope that they've actually kind of come up with some nice, interesting questions that are fair and allow you to identify what they're actually asking. Hello, Ollie RXT. Great to see you in the chat again. Right. Okay. Right. There are so many questions here, but I would say that, sorry, there's quite a few people just asking question after question. So I would say, right. Yeah, basically, hello to Dan Brown as well. It's good to see some people back in the chat. Sorry, there's so many things coming in, it's hard to kind of keep up. Can you use highlighters in exams? I think yes, you can benefit from highlighting things, but you can't write any answers. And you've got to imagine that if when this is scanned in, it's going to be effectively invisible. So if you use a highlighter in the exam, it won't be scanned in, but if it allows you to identify the command words and the key numbers and what's on graphs, that can really help you. Okay, right. Right. Is it better to do multiple choice first? I'd probably just go through the order that things are given to you in the exam. So I know with OCR you've got multiple choice first, and there's only about 15 questions. With AQA there's multiple choice second, and there's a lot more of them. But personally, I'd probably just work through question 1 and then all the way through. Yeah. Right. Yeah. How to structure a 5 to 6 marker. Make sure that there's probably within a 6 marker question for A-level physics, there are 2 questions that are actually asked. So basically treat it like 2 3-mark questions. Make sure that you draw diagrams, that you maybe draw a sketch graph of the kind of stuff that you're going to be plotting, maybe draw the equipment if it's a practical based thing, or maybe actually do a calculation if that's asked within the question, and then write in bullet points, and don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to be writing perfect sentences and paragraphs. You just need to make sure that the bullet points are written in good, clear sentences. You use capital letters, people, so that you look like you know what you're doing, and then you're going to be absolutely fine. Also, thank you so much to General Cami. Yeah, and thank you for your comment, and thank you for your donation. I really appreciate that. Just to say, though, I'm going to leave in about 5 minutes because I don't want to kind of keep you all evening. And there's so many questions that people are asking. But basically, yeah, let's just hope that tomorrow's exam is good. Can uncertainty come up? Yes, because a lot of the time, questions on uncertainty are covered within the first 1 or 2 modules about like your practical skills in physics and just general physics skills. But I would say in paper 1, a question about uncertainty tends to be a 1-mark question, and that tends to be assessed much more in your paper 3 papers. But you still need to know how to calculate the uncertainty in a measured value. So it's going to be the absolute uncertainty divided by the measured value times 100, or it would be equal to half the range divided by the mean value times 100 for multiple values. Okay, where is the 2024 paper 1? It's all locked away on the exam board things, and there's nowhere that I've found that has it on the internet at the moment, I'm afraid. Yeah, right. Nobody's cooked. You're going to be absolutely fine. Right. How does kinetic energy relate to diffraction patterns? So that's a good question. Okay, I'm going to answer this as the last one. Basically, you know that d sine theta is equal to n lambda, and that means there's a link between theta and lambda. Okay, so as you increase lambda for the same order and the same diffraction grating, as you increase lambda, we're going to increase sine theta. Okay, so how do you increase lambda? Well, or how do you change lambda? Well, the wavelength is of that particle. Maybe if we're looking at electron diffraction, we know that the wavelength is equal to h over mv from the de Broglie equation. So what does that link to the velocity? Well, the velocity is also linked to the kinetic energy of that particle, because the kinetic energy is going to be equal to a half mv squared, and the kinetic energy is going to be related to the energy gained by that particle of charge q accelerating through a potential difference. So basically, if you increase the potential difference that we're accelerating something through, so maybe we've got an anode at a certain potential difference, if we increase the potential difference, we increase the velocity. If you increase the velocity, then we increase the momentum, which means we decrease the wavelength. And of course, if you're decreasing the wavelength, then we're going to make the value of sine theta get smaller, and that means the value of theta would also be smaller. So that would be my kind of thought. And basically what I'd probably be doing is, to one side of the question, I'd be thinking about how one thing affects something else affects something else, and then I'd be explaining it in a series of bullet points to say, for example, as you increase the accelerating potential difference, we increase the kinetic energy of the particle, which increases its momentum. But as you increase its momentum, we decrease the wavelength due to the de Broglie equation. And as you decrease the wavelength, we then make it diffract through a smaller angle. So that's the kind of approach I'd have for a question like that. And obviously write it nice and neatly. But yeah, basically, people are asking about paper 3 advice. My biggest advice for paper 3 is to basically ask your parents to buy some of these for you. This is going to be me selling stuff now. And basically, I would say buy from my online shop that you can find links to from the website. I've got practice papers for paper 3A if you're doing AQA, and these all include full work solutions and obviously a full good mark scheme. And you know, I would say better than the other predicted papers I've seen that other people are making. Okay, yes, I'm a sellout, but also this is my business. Physics Online is the thing that's going to be taking over the universe of physics education, and in order to do that, in order to kind of have this thing here that you see behind me, and obviously you know, the kind of live stream setup, to do these live streams I need to earn some money. So please buy stuff so I can afford to get my wheels on my car sprayed so they're nice and matte black or whatever again. Okay, right, so yeah, in order for me to kind of get some better wheels again for my car, I need to have some money so I can you know, keep the car running as it should be. Right, yeah, I've no predictions, I'm afraid. I've got no idea exactly what's going to come up in the exams tomorrow, but let's now all of us collectively have this kind of wishful thinking that the exams are going to be everything that they should be, which is a good opportunity to allow you to really show what you know. And that means you can actually have a good fair chance to get the grade that you deserve, because there aren't any kind of awkward questions where you don't know what you're trying to explain. Let's just hope that the exams tomorrow are fairer than some of the ones that were asked in 2024. I'm sure they will be. I'm sure there'll be improvements. And of course, if there's anything you do want to do tonight, if you're not going to listen to my advice and just go to bed, then you can find everything you need over at A-Level Physics online. So yeah, hope all of you do well, and do let me know. I'm going to put out a video tomorrow, but I'd love to find out how your exams went. It'd be great to find out what went well, what you'd be doing better next time. And if you do want to, then have a look at my masterclasses where there's small group sessions. I'm going to have them specific for AQA, OCR and Edexcel. And yeah, basically that's it. So yeah, hope everybody does well tomorrow. Good luck.